Tony, do you remember Bully being this loud?
Uh,
I've got it turned right
no.
down so you can't hear it. Tangerine.
No.
This is the wheel and all the games that I played recommended via the wheel that I thought were really fun and really good. So I'll shout out everyone who recommended them, and you can give yourself a pat on the back
If
for
you're on the other
recommending me a
wheel,
good wheel. If you're on the
punch yourself
bad,
in the
if you're
stomach.
on the bad wheel, you should feel bad. And if you're and if you're on the it's kind of okay, or I didn't really like it personally, then high five, like half five. I don't know. What
Half,
half a thumbs up?
half a thumbs up. Okay, interesting.
If you may be wondering why I'm sounding slightly different today, I've got a new microphone, but I only have half of it in the fact that I have the Elgato Wave 3 here, but I have not got the mic arm for it. But I
Yeah.
have got it in a position that it would be fairly close to where I would have it. So it should sound a lot better and more clearer and probably louder. So if I'm a lot louder than Tony, then I'll figure that out. But I've turned him up. But
Yeah.
speaking of things being too
I feel
loud,
louder.
Bully Scholarship Edition, as it's known on the it's in the UK. We don't call it Bully. It's called like Candom or something.
Oh, like it sound like the name of the school, right?
Yeah, let me look it up. Canis Canum Edit. Yeah, is the name of the
Yeah.
um. I
Why?
guess
Yeah. Why couldn't they call it bully?
the original version was released for PS2 under the name Canis Canum Edit, which is Latin for dog eats dog. Which I'm like, I played it under Canis Canem Edit, but like, who the fuck's gonna go? Ah, yes, I want to play Canis Canem Edit. Like, nobody's gonna
Yeah.
want to pick that
You're
up.
you're
Like,
playing a bully. It makes sense to call it bully.
Bully is infinitely the better game name
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I've been playing this. So the reason I turned the volume down, this game is really broken.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably pretty broken on the console side, but the PC port
I
is in
think
an
it's less
awful
broken.
state.
Yeah.
Where I've basically had to install a bunch of mods. I'm using the Silent Patch, which is shout out to the Silent Patch for getting like the old GTA and Bully and games working on PC.
Yeah.
And then,
It's great.
Tony, I don't know if you know this, but there's actually a mobile port of the Bully game, and it has higher quality textures for the HUD icons. So I've modded those in. But yeah, it's a real shame that this game is in such a poor state because it really could do with a genuine definitive edition. But the
Yeah.
problem is, after the unsuccess of the GTA trilogy, I don't think it's going to get it anytime soon, or if at all, which is a real shame because
No.
I have so many issues with this game. So the reason I was saying it was too loud, that if your headphones are too advanced, like my headphones are, so I have
Like
7.1 surround sound headphones.
so anything beyond stereo is a problem.
Anything beyond like 5.1, yeah, it just completely
Okay.
breaks where every single character's dialogue is played at full volume no matter where you are. There's no like
Oh, excellent.
proximity audio. So when you enter an area, you can just hear everyone at full volume as if they stood next to you, and it is the most awful sounding thing in the world. It is so frustrating. And I legitimately didn't have headphones old enough to fix this problem. So the only way I could play this game was I would have to use my speakers to play the game, which isn't great for when I want to be on Discord. So I pretty much just had to go off Discord and play this game with speakers was the only way I found. Like I tried
Yeah.
I was on the PC gaming wiki, I tried everything that they suggested on there. I tried looking up, I tried installing like old audio engine wrappers that try to convert the audio engine of like old games to a newer format to try and play well with new headphones. None of it worked. Like I genuinely spent like hours and hours trying to get this game to run properly with the sound and everything. And even then,
Never worked.
The game has a lot of issues, but the big problem is the actual game itself is really fun. I love Bully. I think it's a great game. I
Yeah.
think it's one of my favorite Rockstar games, and I love Rockstar
Oh,
games.
really? Okay.
I was a huge fan as a kid, and yeah, going back and playing it now, it definitely holds up. I mean, I've always liked Rockstar games. We're going to be talking about two Rockstar games just in this Tangerine because I was recommended this game by my friend. I think it was Luke. Yeah, Luke recommended this, and then my friend Andy wanted me to play the story mode for GTA 5. I have like 250 hours in GTA 5, and it was all like the online mode, but I'd never played the story mode. But I went back and played that for the wheel, and I love that too. Yeah.
It just seems crazy to me that you played the online. Like, to me, the play like my desire for that is like completely flipped. So I don't want to play the online.
Well, when I had the old GTA games on, so I whenever I had them single player like San Andreas or Vice City or 3 or whatever, I would pretty much log into them, steal a car and then going like a rampage and then stop playing the game.
Right.
Like for me, I kind of never wanted to do the story. For me, it was just about logging into a sandbox world and just pissing about.
Right.
And then when GTA 4 hit, I was like, oh, I can do what I like doing, but in a multiplayer lobby. That's fucking awesome. Because the way GTA 4's multiplayer works is it's a sandbox world for just you and your friend, and you just gives you a bunch of cars and vehicles and explosives and shit to piss about in, which is really cool.
Right, yeah.
And the way GTA 5 does it, obviously there's way more features, but it's less sandboxy than the GTA 4, which some people will like, some people won't like.
Money progression.
Yeah. I think the heists in GTA 5 are some of the best. There's some of the best like heist content out there, I guess, like stealth co-op gameplay. I mean, like some of it's better than like Payday 2, which is probably the best like co-op stealth. I love like spy stuff, heist stuff, that sort of stuff. I think that stuff is really, really cool. Oh, the game! I just remembered the game kept fucking crashing as well. The game would like randomly crash, so I was like constantly saving.
Do they have a quick save, quick load functionality, or do you just have to go in the menu and save?
No, you have to go to a specific save point. And
it's one of those.
Yeah, so there's only save points at the dorm, or if you unlock a building. So as you progress through the game, you can do challenges to unlock like the boxing club or the nerd's basement near the comic book store. And if you unlock those, you can save there, which I would always do because it was like, oh, another point in the map I can actually save and not crash and lose all my progress because there's no autosave. So if you crash, you would just lose all your progress, and
that sucks.
I think it's partly because I was running the game at a higher FPS, and there were some missions that were broken. Like I literally had. Because I was running the game, I think, at 60 FPS rather than the 30 FPS it normally runs at. But there was several missions that were completely broken at 60 FPS. And I would have to basically save, turn off the game, switch back to 30 FPS, do that mission, and then switch back. But switching back to 30 after doing something at 60 always feels awful. But in this game, like doing that definitely felt really fucking bad when you know the fluidity of 60, like going back to something is always going to feel bad. Obviously, you can get used to 30 and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, I remember the go-karting kept bugging out for a bit. I did actually beat all the go-karting missions, and then my game crashed. So that was fun.
You're going too quick.
I think the game is really, really good, but the average PC experience in modern day people is going to be, oh, this is broken and unplayable for most people, which is such a sad thing to say. Because genuinely, I sat down and I spam saved every time I could, and I played through the whole game, and it's really cool. Like the amount you have such like a smaller map than like a GTA or like a Red Dead Redemption, right? But the amount of variety in the map, and the way that the seasons change and the map changes based on
Yeah,
the school season is so
yeah, it's really
cool.
cool.
And you
Yeah,
unlock
that's changed with the
there.
story.
There feels like so much progression when you unlock a new region. It's like, oh, fine, I can go to the downtown area now. I can,
Do you have more people to like interact with
yeah.
first? It's like they're like, quite dense in terms of like NPCs that you actually slightly care about instead of like
But
just
there's like,
main
for
character.
example, it'll be Christmas, so everyone will be covered in snow
Yeah,
now, and
yeah.
there's like
Look
Christmas
better
missions you can
though.
only do at Christmas, or there's a
Yeah.
Halloween mission, and it's just like it feels like a real living world, which is something I feel like sometimes you can miss in a
It's
bigger game like a GTA Red Dead Redemption, because that's
well,
more like it's big and open, but there's not as much in the in between. Whereas this is just
there's not.
packed with stuff to do.
Yeah, there's not many games that have like seasons like that in. It's like I do feel
Yeah,
like it's kind in a
but
way only MMOs have it, but then you're like it's like literal seasons,
but
not
the
game story
well,
seasons.
the seasons of like the in most games would be, oh, everything's cold now, but it actually
Yeah,
completely changes the world and the missions that you do.
yeah, because it
Um,
gets attached like the progression of the story, right?
yeah, which is such a cool thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's basically like there's a GTA system, so you if you truant from school, you can get caught by the police, and then they will fuck you up. They'll send you back to
Yeah,
school.
they'll shank you.
Um, if you
But
get in trouble enough, you will get expelled, and that
yeah.
will you'll. I think you have to. You get like a punishment. You either have to like like in the winter, you have to like shovel snow, and I think a
Okay.
full expulsion might you have to reset back to a checkpoint.
Right. So like yeah, it's like
So
makes it harder if you keep
there is
doing
like a
it.
lot of incentives not to get caught, but it's a
Yeah,
lot
that's really cool.
lighter than I would say than like a GTO
But
RDR.
but I guess it's but it's more but it's like thematically strong. I would say like it makes you really feel like a bully.
Yeah, but I love this like the whole time that you're like, oh, I need to go and do this side mission, but the whole time I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna miss my my chemistry
Yeah.
class if I don't go here at this time. Like it's really
Isn't
cool.
that aren't the classes like bullshit like mini
They're mini
games as well?
games, yeah.
You don't really want to do.
You don't. The thing is, you can completely ignore the missions for the class as well. They
Yeah.
like unlock bonuses for you, but they're completely optional. And I found
Yeah.
myself sometimes just ignoring ones like the workshop missions. I could not for the life of me get them to work for me, and I was just ignoring them.
So you just skipped them.
So sometimes stuff is a lot easier with a controller, and sometimes stuff is a lot easier with a mouse and keyboard. But you can't switch to them on the fly like you can in GTA. So in GTA and RDR,
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I need to aim. I'm going to use my mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
But for GTA, I could just literally move the mouse and I would immediately start using it, and then I could immediately move the controller and it would switch to it. For this game, you have to pause the game, go into the options, turn the controller on, and then get out of the options, and then you can switch. It is so like slow and archaic. It is so annoying because like these are the sort of games where I'm constantly switching input devices between
Yeah.
like, oh, I want to drive a car or whatever, I'm going to be on a controller, or now I want to aim precisely, I'm going to switch to a mouse and keyboard. And that's how I play most of these games. But yeah, I think
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This could be so good in a much better state.
Bully is a really good game that is hard to recommend because of how broken it
Yeah.
is on PC. I think if you can find a copy in like PS2 or maybe I don't know, is it better to just emulate the PS2
I
version of Bully? It might genuinely be better
it
than
might be,
playing the
but would you
PC
not
version.
solve control and sound issues?
I don't know if you can emulate like a mouse and keyboard on PSX. Maybe you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah.
It might be my bet. It might be worth investigating. But yeah, I have no idea. Never really considered it before.
Well, I know like it's probably better to emulate Sonic Heroes than it is to try and play the
Yeah.
PC port.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I would recommend this if you can get it to work, but that is a big ask to most people because the game underneath is genuinely really fun.
Yeah. I think it was on
And
sale a lot because
I
like
love
it's so
all the
much
small
cheap.
details about how you have to like you have to wear school uniform, otherwise the hall monitors will get you.
Oh yeah,
You have to, like, I was constantly dressing in random outfits and then running away from hall monitors to not get caught.
that's so funny. Yeah,
Let's move on to another Rockstar game. We have GTA 5. I think
you stack the GTA games at the
the
front then.
Rockstar
Well,
games at
sorry,
the
the Rockstar
front.
games at the front. Yeah.
I love GTA 5. I think it's strange that I constantly talk about how much I dislike most open world games, but I feel like I Rockstar games are almost like their own breed of sandbox games
Well,
or
that's because they actually put a lot of effort into the
open world
detail
sand.
of like the
Yeah,
interactions of the open
like
world. Not big for the sake of it.
I'm so excited for GTA 6. It's unreal. I think that's like my most anticipated game right now is GTA 6. Like whenever that comes out, I'm going to
Okay.
play the hell out of that game. Um like I absolutely adore like one of my favorite activities is not doing missions in GTA 5. It's I get a car and I drive around in the rain at night listening to music on the radio. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite cuz like the graphics like for the time and even like now I'm
It's
pulling the mullet
fine
out.
now.
I'm
Yeah.
pulling the mullet out. The graphics are good now and it's such a shame that they made the enhanced. I don't know if you know this. They made the enhanced edition of
Oh yeah.
the GTA 5
Yeah,
with
but it's
the ray tracing in it, and it's only available on the console versions. You cannot play it on the PC.
yeah.
There's a GTA Online subscription service that has exclusive cars that is only available on the console version, and then they
Oh
removed the
God.
cars from the PC version,
Yeah.
which I
It's
think
just
is
awful. But at
but
least the single player is still whole, right?
yeah. The single player is fucking sick. I love the
Yeah.
story. I love the characters so much. I love Trevor, Michael, and Franklin have such a good relationship. Is it Frank? Wait, is it Frank? Is it Franklin or is it Lamar? I'm thinking of. I think it's Franklin, right? Yeah, it's Franklin.
Okay.
Franklin have such a good relationship between them. For some reason, I got in my head, I started thinking of CJ from San Andreas, and I was like, wait, am I saying the right character name? And I was like, wait, no, I am. It is Franklin. It's Lamar's Franklin's friend, who you do missions for as well.
Right. Okay.
You even play as a dog in GTA 5. That's how good a game it is.
That's is that how you know it's good?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird product of its time as well because you can switch the dog and it's like if you use the Rockstar app on your mobile phone, you can
Oh,
use
okay.
this special feature and it's just like, do you remember when games tried to add arbitrary mobile apps integration into them?
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
like now everyone's like, well, this is a completely deprecated feature that you can't use anymore.
Thank God. We're
That
out of that era. We just have
yeah.
loot boxes and gambling instead.
This is a mission set
Microtransactions.
after the main story where Trevor comes back to his trailer and his mother is there and she wants him to go and get some drugs for her.
So she was in prison? Is that was like they said saying?
Well, I mean, I don't know how much spoilers we're going to be getting into, but
Okay, okay, fair.
this
I have not played
this is an
GTA
interesting
5
side
myself, by
mission.
the way.
Yeah, and I don't know if you do you want to go into spoilers because I can go into like the ending of the game and
Um,
stuff like that. There is a
I'm gonna
like
say I'll say no, but like maybe like overarching like themes is fine.
yeah, so but I will say like there is a game-changing choice at the end of the game that can
Okay.
massively affect what you can and cannot do. So
Right,
just be
okay,
conscious
fair.
of that. Certain missions will become locked off to you based on your decisions in the story, mostly at the end.
Okay.
But yeah,
It's kind of interesting though. That's kind of like cool.
I'll give the main story of GTA 5 if you don't know. Basically, um, it's set from you start from Michael's point of view. He's robbing banks with Trevor, and then he fakes his own death after he basically betrays the guys and turns them in so he doesn't get prison time. And then he goes to Los
Right.
Santos and retires. Um, then he comes into contact with Franklin, who basically by this point he's kind of given up. He's seeing a psychiatrist. He's talking about like he's paying him a bunch of money and he doesn't tell him anything he wants to hear. And he's got kids that don't love him and they're brats.
Yeah,
And his
yeah.
wife is having sex with everyone that's not him. And he basically meets Frank and he's like, "Oh, this is what I used to do. I used to, do these like little heist mission stuff. I want to get back into this." So as it progresses through the story, you start to do missions, and the way GTA 5 works, you switch freely between characters. So at any point, you can switch between playing the characters you've unlocked. Eventually, Trevor runs into Michael, and Michael is very worried about Trevor finding out that he betrayed him. Because the police come back into it at some point and you have to do missions for them.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing I love about the radio system in this game is you can have a radio station called Self Radio, where it will let you basically link it to a folder on your computer and it will play songs for your music library.
That's
And it
cool.
will put fake radio host and adverts between them. It's like,
Oh, thank God.
it's just like, you know what's best. You're a narcissist. Self Radio.
So it sounds like the radio. I assume Scorsese copied GTA 5 in that regard. So
I love that they
fake
put so
adverts.
much depth into the fucking like web browser of your phone to like this is how you interact with the bank and buying cars, and you need to look up in there's an entire side quest that starts from taking a cult survey on one of these random websites. Like
Okay.
they just put so much detail into these things, and it's just like the Rockstar like the polish that you just don't get from other games. It's just insane. I'm trying to
Yeah.
look up where to find
Pretty
this
cool.
Deludo drugs because I have no idea where to find them. I think eventually I just looked it up online because I couldn't figure it out.
No, the real online.
Yeah, the real online.
that
But it's because like
is really cool element.
because as well as the story missions, which are like marked by the character that you do on them, you have these question marks which are random encounters. So they can be like missions for specific people, or they can be like, "Oh, I'm being mugged, help me," or whatever. And that really adds to like the flavor of the game, where you have these like weirdo interactions and just weird shit starts. I think at one point you get abducted by aliens by one of them.
Okay. Right.
There's a lot of like weird stuff that happens.
So you just like bored users like look at a question mark, or like if you're in the mood for it.
Yeah,
If you're driving past, it'll activate.
I love how like Trevor just ruins his friend's cousin's entire life by basically breaking into his house and then like starting to live there. I think Trevor's probably my favorite character. I think it's cool that they like all look and sound like the voice actors, and the voice actors actually seem to have quite a good relationship from what I've seen from like
Yeah,
that sort of perspective.
yeah, it's pretty cool
I
to see. Yeah, because I guess the character's like so important to how you play the game, right? Or to how you interact with the world.
I think it's cool. Like I love the car handling in GTA. Like I know it's not realistic, but I love that you can just adjust the car in midair, and it may not be realistic, but it just feels so good to drive around. I love the arcadey sort of drive to all of the vehicles.
I
It's
feel
just
like it may not realistic, but it's like deep enough where like different cars feel different, or at least they seem different when I watch people drive. Like this, like
yeah.
the handling difference seems like wildly different from different vehicles at different
Like you
speeds.
can customize your vehicles, and for like Michael, I was like, oh, and Franklin, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make these look like the coolest vehicle possible. And then for Trevor, I was customizing his vehicle. And I was like, how do I make this car look shittier? How do I make it
Yeah.
look like a serial killer owns it? Like that's what the kind of vibe I want to go for when I'm playing Trevor.
Full role play.
Yeah, yeah, you just get immersed in this world, and it has like great characters and a great story. And yeah, I would highly recommend the story mode of GTA 5 to anyone. It is really fun, and I also highly recommend GTA Online. This is in my opinion, a 5-star game. You know, did I
Yeah,
tell you I
yeah,
started rating things on my games list after I play them? I put a rating down. I haven't done it
oh,
for
okay,
everything, but I've been trying to put like a rough estimate down, and it has a
right.
five-star system. And after I finished playing GTA 5, I just put down 5 stars. I was like, yeah, this
Okay,
is like a perfect game.
yep.
Really, really good. So yeah. Um, I don't know if I put a rating down for Bully because it's been a while since I played it. Because I didn't put one down for Bully. I only started doing it like halfway through playing some of these, so I
Right,
won't
right.
have. But yeah, highly recommend GTA.
What
After
made you want to put a star system? The bad games or the good games?
neither. I
Okay,
couldn't remember my thoughts on a lot of the games after I played them because it was such a long time before we did Tangerines. So I was like,
right.
if I put down a rough amount of stuff, like it's not like, oh, this game is a 5 star and nothing will change my mind. It's like, oh, I roughly think this game is about this good, and if I look at that
Yeah,
before I do a Tangerine, it probably jogged my memory of what I thought about the game. Because if I look at a
right,
game and I'm
right.
like, I love this, and I look at my star rating and I go, oh, it's 2.5 stars, I'll go, wait a minute, what didn't I like about this game? You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Where I felt like, because I'm not a big fan of just number ratings, I think context matters, but as a
yeah.
general rule of thumb to help me
As
remember my general feelings about a
a guide,
game,
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah, a
useful.
glancing guide for future reference, yeah, for sure.
This is a really cool side quest. I don't know if I want to spoil it because, yeah, it has a cool. It's kind of sad, but yeah, definitely if you finish the campaign of GTA, go back, play as Trevor, and go back to his trailer and do this mission for Trevor's mum. It is quite the mission. But yeah, check out GTA 5. It still looks gorgeous to this day, and I'm
Yeah,
super excited for the next one. Next up, we have Hades. I'm going to be briefly talking about Hades. I spoke about this in my games of 2020 that I played in 2022 list, so there's not too much to reiterate on this. But and thanks to Andy for recommending GTA 5 Story Mode. I also played a speed run of Among Us beforehand because he requested I do an Among Us speed run, but I did not record that. So I did an Among Us of doing all the tasks in Among Us. If anyone was wondering.
so you're saying his first recommendation was terrible, but his second one was pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, I don't hate Among Us. We played some Among Us VR. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
What can I say about Hades? I fucking love Hades. That's what I can say about Hades. The combat in this game is so fucking good. How I feel about Supergiant games is they've always had really awesome looking art. They've always had like
yeah,
awesome narration, characters, and voice acting. And then I just did not gel with the combat at all. And then it feels like with Hades, finally everything came together. And it's almost like a roguelike game that is designed for people who don't like roguelites. It's a
or at least
roguelike
burnt up on
game with
roguelike.
heavy progression to it. You
Yeah,
progress the story. There is a full ass story in this game that is progressed through playing this tight combat roguelike god killing game. It is fucking sick. If you haven't heard about Hades yet, where have you been? It is everyone was talking about it when it came out in like what 2020.
yeah, I think
And
so.
yeah, it is so much fun. So much unique weapons, unique combos you can get together by um, uh, getting different gods' powers or boons, as they're called in this game. And there's always progression through the story, or you progress through collecting gems to upgrade your character, or just unlocking cosmetics for the Hades like parlor area you stand around in. Like, uh, highly recommend. Oh, it also has fishing in it, so Scorn Retorts can play this
Oh,
game.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
there's a Neptune upgrade that gives you a fishing rod.
I
Um,
will say as well, the other thing that's gonna be pro Squad Tours is like the ancient, well, ancient god aspect of it. So
yeah,
the mythology. So that's a big plus.
but yeah, love this game, and yes, you can pet the dog in Hades as well.
Oh, the Cerberus.
Um, yeah, if you want to know more, check out our games of the year. I talk more about Hades there, I think.
Yeah, there should
Um,
be yeah, they should do a specific timestamp as well because it was like pointed out at the end, I think. So they should be quite easy to find in the
but yeah,
timestamps in the
to
description.
try and not make this video 3 hours long, I will move on
Okay.
to Psychonauts. again, I love Psychonauts. There's a reason it's on this list. I've never played Psychonauts, so I was a bit worried that maybe a game that came out in 2005 might be a bit dated for somebody who'd never played it. But I can say it holds up almost extremely well for most things.
The UI doesn't scale quite right. That's about it.
As someone who's played other Tim Schafer games and Double Fine games, like I've talked about in the podcast previously, I love stacking. That's one of my favorite games of all time, especially a Double Fine game. I think it's amazing. I love Psychonauts. It's a great 3D platformer. It has such interesting ideas in the way that you go inside like Inception people's minds, and you have to face their fears and
unique get like levels from that. Yeah.
I'm inside one of the teachers' heads, and they have these I'm in like a groovy disco. And you like have unique ways to use all the as you play through. Oh, here's some emotional baggage I'm fixing by getting the tag back to it. This is why so it's very much like has a lot of collectathon elements to it. It's very much like a 3D collectathon platformer. And one of the things you collect is these memories, which my biggest complaint about them is they're really hard to see.
They look a bit difficult.
This is an emotional cobweb. You can unlock the ability to pick those up from the shop. With this item I'm using. Yeah, my biggest problem was I would make them way easier to see. They're so hard to see now. I don't know if they were easier to see earlier, but they're like... A lot of the time I just go past them because I can't see them a lot of the time. That's like one of my dated complaints about the game. But there is so many levels on Psychonauts that are so like brilliantly made, where like you have a mission where you go inside this mailman, or you go inside the milkman's head, and he's gone insane, and you start seeing things from his perspective. So you see all these secret agents, and then when you look from there's a power up that lets you see from their perspective. So I was constantly doing that, and you wear these disguises, and then you would look like a dog, or you would look like a repairman. It's like, you cannot go here. Only the repairman can go here. And then you would have to find the repairman disguise, and it'd be like, yes, you are the repairman. And then you would look through their perspective, and they would see like this 2D cardboard cutout of a repairman. And I think like those small details just infinitely make Psychonauts such an amazing game. Like they thought of everything to do with like the psychic powers. It's not just, their psychic powers that, you basically shoot blast waves out of your head. And there's basic ones, but there's such unique ways to interact with the world and the different powers together. You can see here, like I've got this ball that gives me low gravity and lets me roll. And then I was gliding there as well. And these are the sensors. So the main enemy of the game they're trying to basically stop you from invading their minds. So these are the guys you have to fight.
Oh, okay. So like the defense is like from the person. Okay, that's quite cool. But you're trying to help, but okay.
I think the mailman mission I was talking about won like a design award because it was like just such a great. But there are so many great missions. There's like the luchador one, which is so colorful and stylish. Basically, every single level, like dream mission, it could have been its own entire like art style of a game. It is so well made, and you get to go, and if you get the collectibles, you get to basically see the memories of the people you're going inside, which is really cool to see.
Okay. So is the whole thing, from a story perspective, the whole thing that you're trying to help people in their mind, or like what? Why do you have these powers?
So originally you go to the camp you're a psychic called Rasputin who has this runaway from the circus, and you want to train to be a psychic. Your father never let you train to be a psychic because his I can't remember if his parents or something were murdered by psychics. So he's like, no, you cannot be a psychic, which I would just say, again, the thing I love about Double Fine, especially this game, it is like weirdly like mix of kid stuff, but being very dark at the same time. There's a kid who's constantly talking about how he keeps accidentally killing people and blowing up their minds and stuff like that. Or it goes into like really dark themes through these like themes of like children's stuff. So Rasputin is, I think he's something like he almost drowned or something, where he's terrified of water, and that's a big theme throughout the game where you can't go across water because these tentacles will come out and attack you because Rasputin has this fear of water. I think it's really cool.
So like, if anyone else, like, I guess it's story of anyone else to do it, they wouldn't have that problem. So that's kind of cool, yeah.
But Rasputin basically escapes from the circus and he runs away and he's like, I want to be trained by the Psychonauts, which are this like elite group of like crime fighting psychics that have started this camp to train young psychics to become the next Psychonaut, which are like these mind agents. But the main story of Psychonauts is that something's going wrong at the camp. There's people's minds keep going missing. Like they keep getting like almost like lobotomized, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
If you know, you know. I don't know.
Search for it.
No. I'm saying like that makes a lot of sense if you've played the story of Psychonauts, because that is. Yep. I don't know how much like spoilers you want me to go into, because from what I know, the story of Psychonauts 1 connects to the VR game which I've played, which connects on to the Psychonauts 2, the new Psychonauts game. So they directly follow on from each other.
I guess not too much thing.
From my opinion, it is very much worth playing both the first Psychonauts game and the Psychonauts VR game. They're both really good. So I definitely check those out.
Alright, so it's one of those like
somebody put a review for this game. They said, this reminded me of the one time the milkman gave his delicious milk and then he faded into a beam of light. I am the milkman, my milk is delicious. Yeah, this is the milkman I'm talking about.
Okay.
But yeah, I played it on my Steam Deck as well. There's a native Linux version of this as well. If you want to play it on like a Steam Deck or something, I'd recommend doing it that way as well. Great way to play it. It's an older game, so it runs perfectly on that system.
Yeah, not too resource intensive. I guess you can kind of see it. What? So yeah, I guess the resolution is quite low. Was like. Is it upscaled to
I think I upscaled it to 440p, but this game could definitely be worthy of like a HD retexturing.
Oh yeah.
If not like a full remaster sort of thing.
Because the UI could need some like scaling.
Oh, every time I think about this game, I'm thinking about more cool missions I love. You know in Ratchet and Clank, where you go into Clank mode and you become a giant? There's an entire mission where you play as a giant, invading people's minds, and you're helping the Resistance fight against this other giant monster, and half of them are the entire time you're saving these people, this is the dark humor, you're going around destroying their buildings accidentally because you're so huge. Which I'm like, this is hilarious. But yeah, this game
giant Clank missions.
Well, I'm going to be playing Clank missions soon. I guess there's Clank missions. I'm going to be playing Rifts Apart soon when that comes out on PC.
I believe they're Clank missions, yeah.
Can't wait to play. I love platformers, and Psychonauts is one of the best platformers of all time. It is fantastic, and I cannot highly recommend it enough. And I don't want to tell you too much more about it because I think you should just try and experience it for yourself. I'd recommend this to everyone. Psychonauts. Okay. Thank you, Charlie, for recommending this. This was a very good game.
Good shout, a good recommendation.
Next up, we have Tales of the Neon Sea, recommended by my good friend Tony here.
Okay, I guess I need to explain what happened.
Go on.
So you just asked me. I guess this is kind of what you did to everyone. Is like, here's a list. I don't know if you gave. Did you give a list of games to everyone? Because you gave me like a.
I basically said. I gave them a link to my Steam profile, so I can say any game on here, and then I took screenshots of my GOG library, so they could see like every single game I owned on other platforms like Epic or Amazon Games, where I have like free games. Because I didn't own this game on Steam. I think I had it on Amazon Games or something was given away for free one day. It's not the sort of game I would buy, but because I had
Yeah.
it in my library, I was able to play it, sort of thing.
So you asked me what choose a game, and I'm kind of curious about how the people chose. And I was like, well, I want to choose something that's interesting because I don't really have like because at the time like this, most people were recommending a game they enjoyed themselves.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't really have
Or
a game that
punishment
I think.
games like Saunders. Getting over
Yeah, I
it.
think that happened. Yeah, I think that happened after, so I didn't know that that was a thing yet. Um, but yeah, I didn't really have a game that I thought, like, oh, that I liked that like you would love or something that you hadn't already played. So it's like I'll just like try and find an interesting game like
Yeah.
based upon like the name and the thumbnail. And I thought, oh, this is kind of really interesting. Um, no idea what it's about. I entirely going by the
I
colors
saw
and
the
like
thumbnail
the
and I
art
said,
style.
"Oh, that looks like a weird like pixel cyberpunk game. I wonder what that's about."
Yeah,
Um, and I will say, I think one of the biggest strengths of Tales of the Neon Sea is the art, in my opinion, is really
yeah,
fucking cool. I
it
think
is
it
really good.
genuinely is really well made. It's like this, what looks like hand drawn cyberpunk pixel city. Like the
Yeah.
backgrounds of this game always look really, really cool. Um, and I'm gonna say it. I recommend playing this weird point and click game. It is pretty
Yeah,
fun.
it's basically a point game why because you streamed a little bit of it, so me and
Yeah,
Scrum Talks were watching it, and Scrum Talks like after a few minutes, like I'm gonna stop watching, because he
because he
wanted
wants to play.
to play it
I
for
do that a
himself.
lot. Where I remember when I was watching Soda Pop and play Everhood, which is one of my games of
Oh
2021, I think.
yeah,
I basically watched him play for a bit. I was like, "This looks super fucking weird and fun. I'm gonna stop watching this and I'm gonna get this game and play it myself."
yep,
Because like
yeah,
whenever I see an interesting game, I want to play it. I want to experience it for myself. I'm not really. I have some friends who would be like, "Oh, there's a new game coming out. I can't wait to watch someone play it on YouTube." And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, each to their own. But personally, that's not how I like to enjoy
I
games.
think if you do that, you can't really play it in the same way, like because you're gonna be like not fatigued, but like you've seen it before, and like even
Yeah,
if like you haven't felt it before, you're gonna like it's not the same experience for
yeah.
sure.
There were a lot of these like pipe puzzles, like random little puzzles to it. Basically, you are a detective in like a robotic cyberpunk city, and
Yeah, and there's an election coming up.
you're investigating a crime. You investigate several
Yeah,
crimes, but it dates back to a re-emergence of a serial killer that you tried to catch years ago, who is basically doing ritualistic killings, and
yeah.
you're trying
It's
to
a
figure out
classic.
what's going on.
It's a classic crime story, I
Murder
suppose. That's quite
mystery.
common. Yeah.
Detect. It's very like cyberpunk film noir story.
I not
Um,
knowing what this game was, I couldn't have chosen a better game. Um,
mm.
I don't know. It's just yeah. I feel quite.
A
I'm
lot of the
quite pleased
time,
with the highest
I
amount.
I'm very sensitive to puzzles. Is the nicest way I can put
Yeah.
that about my own intelligence. But I would
I don't think it's
say,
intelligent. I don't think it's an intelligence problem. I think it's like what you expect and like and how you like think puzzles should be solved like from other like gaming
but the
experiences you have.
reason I mostly dislike point and click games is it's like you need to find this very specific thing and you need to click
Yep.
on everything until you find the one
Yep.
specific thing that
That
it
that
interacts with, and it doesn't ever
That's a
make
hallmark of a
sense.
bad. That's a hallmark of a bad point and click. Like good point and click should not have that. And the puzzle should be fun to do and somewhat intuitive to start. But yeah, a lot of point and clicks, however, fall into that trap, and it's a massive shame.
Not only do you play as a detective, you also get to play sections as a cat
Oh
called
yeah, yeah,
William,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
where you get to do like light platform. It's not really you kind of just jump between different layers, and then you have to try and figure. You have to make a deal
like
with the
puzzle.
cat mafia and stuff like that. This game goes like really weird turns and several times, but like the core meaty stuff is like ritualistic robot murder and like putting people's torsos into weird totem statue. I'm like that stuff. I'm like, okay, this shit is really weird and interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I'm like, I'm so intrigued. What the hell's going on in this story? I want to keep going. It gets it the deeper you go in, the weirder it gets. But it's one of those games where the more I talk about and show, the less it's going to be impactful to you playing it. Um,
yeah.
so
I think this is basically right at the start. I think this is the correct thing to show because it doesn't
yeah,
really show anything. It's really just showing you like the
I'll
theme
see if I
and
can find any of the. Oh, so
controls.
here's like the cat platforming that you can do, like finding different robot parts. I think I have any footage of the city. The apartment is great. Oh, it's Wally. I don't think I do have any footage of the city. I think I just recorded like the first 20 minutes. But yeah, these are the sort of puzzles you do. You're moving batteries and stuff around.
That's what I was helping with, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I need a lot of help.
Yeah,
with
these puzzles are like perfect for me. These are the sort of puzzles I like.
Yeah.
It's like they're not too difficult, but they kind of like force you to think.
But yeah, I was very surprised by Tales of the Neon Sea. It is never a game I would have picked if it wasn't on the wheel, but I ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. It wasn't the perfect game. It wasn't a game that I'm going to, say is a a game that necessarily is a perfect game, but it was genuinely. It was quite short, and I think it was about 4 hours I played of it. I think it's about 4 hours long. It was quite fun. It didn't overstay its welcome, I will say, based on the 4 hours I played. So I think it was like a perfect length for this sort of game.
I think when you first started streaming the game, that turned out to be like more of a point and clicky thing. I was like, oh, okay, I guess you might not like this. It's like I thought I had a bad pick on my hands. But
yeah, that's what I thought.
It's nice. It's nice to see that it's actually interesting and I guess interesting and impactful, I suppose.
But yeah, if this intrigues you at all, you saw some of the city in this background.
There's glimpses of the city.
Yeah. Check out Tales of the Neon Sea. It's a point and click game that I weirdly recommend. It is pretty fun. Yeah, check that out. Next up, we have the Lego Ninjago movie. Speak about another game that was I just went, oh, it's going to be another one of these Lego games, and I went, this game is fucking awesome.
Wait, can I pat myself on the back for the previous game? Hang on.
You picked it at random. What do you mean you can pat yourself on the back?
I mean, I picked it, but I had credentials to pick it.
Yeah, okay.
Had a good name and a good thumbnail.
So this was chosen by our friend Laura, which I like the Lego games, but I'm not like a huge Lego games guy. I mean, I've played a couple. Usually it's the sort of thing where I'll be sitting on like the PlayStation or a console or something, and somebody loads up, Lego Star Wars or Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's like, oh, this is fun to play for a little bit. But I was surprised how like well made and fun the Lego Ninjago movie video game was. I thought, seeing that it was a movie tie-in, I immediately was like, okay, this is going to be low effort.
It's going to be crap.
But genuinely, there's actual like leveling mechanics and a lot of like great level design and combat inside this game, which I was like, holy shit, it's actually a decent game that is a Lego movie tie-in. So you're a huge Lego fan, but you've never seen the Lego Ninjago movie.
No, I know what Lego Ninjago is now, but when I first saw Lego Ninjago like in stores, right, I was like, what the hell is Lego Ninjago? And then I eventually discovered that had a movie.
I've personally seen the movie, and I was like, oh, I quite liked the Lego Ninjago movie. It wasn't as good as the Lego movie, which is why I think it gets forgotten about, but it still did have like a pretty decent story and some good animation to it.
Oddly, I feel like it's more. I know the Lego movie is like for everyone, but I feel like Ninjago is like more kid focused, I would say.
But one thing I will say, if you've seen the Lego Ninjago movie, you pretty much know the plot of the Lego Ninjago movie video game. Because one thing this game does a lot is it shows like straight up scenes from the movie as the plot progresses, and you kind of play the in-between of those sections. So it adds a bit more context, I guess, but if you're going into this looking for... If you've seen the movie and you're like, oh, I want an original story in that universe, that's not what you're going to get.
People want to play a game with the same story.
But it'd been long enough that I'd watched the film that I only vaguely remembered what happened, and then I was like, oh yeah, I remember this happening, but I don't fully remember everything. So the recap wasn't, too bad.
I mean, one thing I did learn from this game, I guess the movie would have taught me as well, was that the green guy is called Lloyd. I would just call him Lloyd.
It's called Lloyd.
I didn't realize that because I just read it.
My name is Lloyd. No, it's Lloyd. I named you.
So, yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty funny. That's like
The humor is
that's
on
a
point
that's a
in
joke
Ninjago.
that comes up in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And his power is green.
they're like Lego ninjas that fly around on like flying dragons and different vehicles. They're sort of
'cause
like Lego Ninja Power Rangers.
Well, yeah, it's also future, right? So like that's what they have.
And they all have their power of their elements. Like there's an
Yeah.
ice guy. There's a guy who does fire. There's a guy, that does lightning. And then Lloyd has the element of green, I believe is his element, which is like an obvious, very funny joke. This is like the
I
tutorial
assume it's just meant
section.
to be wind,
Maybe
right?
I can skip ahead a bit. Yeah, like the actual design, like you can tell they kind of cheaped out a bit in the background. Like it's not. You were saying it's not fully Lego.
That was my one problem. Is that they kind of cheated with like not. It's not just the background. It's like what you're on now isn't really made of Lego. It's just kind of pretending. But I mean,
it still looks really good.
Yeah, it's a minor thing. It's like
and it's
Lego
like it's one of the slightly later Lego games because apart from the Skywalker saga that came out recently,
that's the one that came after.
This came out in 2017, so it's like because a lot of the early Lego games came out in like I don't know, like 2010ish, 2012ish, something like that, right?
Yeah, they're really old.
But you can see
I think
like
2008 all the way to
But yeah, the game genuinely has good combat, good platforming, and a lot of great. As someone who's a fan of collectathons, there's lots of shit to collect. You can become a true ninja and collect all of the studs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, like you're a true pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean, or you're a true Jedi in Lego Star Wars.
Yeah.
But I always saw these games as like, oh, they're just like fun little co-op games that I wouldn't play them myself. But after playing through this entire game solo, there's genuinely a lot of fun to had just by playing it through by yourself. Which is a shame because
co-op as well, right?
Yeah, but I think a lot of Lego games only have local co-op, which is a big problem with them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so if you wanted to, like, I have tried to play Lego The Hobbit, I think it was through remote play, and I was the one hosting, but I know from my experience of using somebody else's remote play, it's not always a great experience.
No, it depends on how it's handled. And
but I could see this definitely be something great to load up on a Steam Deck and put into a TV and play local co-op. Would definitely be a great way to do it.
Kind of the secret power of the Steam Deck is like, oh, local co-op, but how are we going to do that? But we just bring.
Well, that's the secret power of the Steam Deck dock or having a USB-C dock.
Yeah.
Which is something I learned from my Steam Deck.
With controllers and just playing it yourself because we've done that with that's how I did Octodad, right? Really.
Yeah, so I've played Octodad.
That was actually at your.
I've played Octodad twice. Once in single player streamed on a TV through the Steam Deck, and once in the co-op mode where every controller controls a different limb.
Yeah.
And I've only ever played it on Steam Deck, but I've played it twice.
It's kind of funny.
But it just opens up like possibilities to games you wouldn't normally play. I played this entire thing on my PC, but I could easily see myself or others playing this on their Steam Deck. Seems like a fantastic choice.
Did you use a controller to play this game or
controller,
okay.
I believe.
I always assumed this would be a controller game, but I just never sure.
I think you could probably play it with a mouse and keyboard, but it just seemed naturally like it would be a controller game.
Yeah.
And it seems like a more relaxed thing. A lot of the time I just feel like it is more relaxed to do things in the controller.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's kind of like necessity to play that way the controller works, but the game's made for it. It makes sense,
Yeah. Do you have like these in-game cinematic things? I'll see if I can find a movie cinematic so I can compare like. Oh, I love that there's random drivable vehicles for no reason.
Oh yeah.
That's such a great detail.
I would. This one I would love like a GTA Lego City.
So this is how you level. You got the Ninjago token, and you basically get to choose how you want to level up through this tech tree.
Look at those brick built scrolls. They're brilliant. See, so when there's stuff for brick built, it just looks much better than when it's not. So
I'm just skipping.
You have to stick with Lego Worlds for everything brick built.
I had like footage of the. Oh, so this is like the movie footage that's throughout the game. So the movie footage is obviously a lot higher quality. But it is, all pre-rendered movie stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But this goes to like the movie stuff. The movie is like a pretty cool movie, so it is. I guess it kind of did its job in being a merchandised movie because it got you to want to watch the Lego Ninjago movie.
Yeah, because I again, as I'd heard of Ninjago like a couple of years ago, and I have now bought a couple of sets, and then I realized that there was a movie and stuff, and it's like I never wanted to watch it, but it's like seeing the cutscenes, I was like, okay, you know what? I thought the humor would be kind of bad, and it's like, no, you know what? I can deal with this humor. This is like kind
Tony, can you talk about Lego for 2 seconds while I grab some more water? My throat's
Yeah,
killing me.
I can speak about Lego. I can speak about Lego. I would say like, I was getting weird. I don't know if anyone else has this. This only makes sense to Lego fans, but in like the early, I don't know, I want to say 2010s and a little bit onwards, like a lot of the advertising for Lego was like for Lego City stuff. Like they would always like show like stuff in Lego City. This kind of gave me some of the vibes. They don't do that anymore. I don't get those vibes, but like Ninjago stuff still gives me this game Ninjago at least gives me those vibes. Like, oh, it'd be cool to be a little Lego person in the streets and like having. I wonder what it's like to have different vehicles. But yeah, I mean, as I said before, like it's definitely futuristic with the mechs and the machinery and the advanced evil. I was gonna say alien, they're not alien. Evil constructs and things. But I do love that the humor of just that they're just evil just because he's evil. It's a good reason. You don't need to explain it any more of that for a funny kids thing. You know, I was while watching Joe play this, like I was very surprised that I don't want to say mini games, but like the how much the gameplay changed, like from mission to mission. They tried to keep it interesting. You have to. I assume Joe would agree with me with this, but it's like the changing up the pace of gameplay is nice instead of just having like a repetitive, boring gameplay loop. So yeah, it's good to see.
I'm back.
I kind of wish some of these dragons were actually you could actually still buy them. I think you.
I refuse to do editing on giant video files, so if I need to go to the toilet or I need to grab a drink, I'll just run.
Oh, you ran, did you?
Mm.
It's fine.
Well, I've got water.
I was just saying.
I took a quick pee as well.
I was just saying. I think you could have bought these dragon sets back in the day, but then Lego like retires and Ninjago stuff quite quickly.
So it was the best. Really it's the best time to go because I got Tony to talk about Lego, which he loves.
Yeah,
so
I can speak about Lego for a while.
And you get to see like the vehicle combat.
Oh, the fire truck! I'm so pissed off. They don't sell proper.
You're gonna have to download a blueprint from your Lego third-party website.
No, I bought I think I bought that exact model, but like from eBay. It's like from 2013. So
let's move on because we got
sell fire trucks.
We got three more games, and then we good to go. We have The Medium. So this was recommended by my friend Andrew, and he was like, "Oh, you should play The Medium. It looks cool. It'll test out your graphics card." So I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "I don't own The Medium, but it's on sale, so I'll buy it." He just thought I was asking people to just genuinely recommend games.
Yeah.
But
a miscommunication, I suppose.
I've always been interested to try The Medium because I thought it looked really cool. The idea of rendering like two completely different worlds at the same time was interesting to me.
I kind of like I don't think it's called this, but like the idea of like having the real world and like a spirit world, like a supernatural world, like in the same space is like always an interesting idea.
Yeah. This is the start of the game, by the way, so there's no spoilers here. It always starts with a girl. The main story of The Medium is you play as a medium who works at a mortuary, and you get a strange call from somebody one day telling you to come to this abandoned communist resort, and as you go there, your medium powers start to activate and strange stuff starts to happen, and a weird, strange creature starts chasing you around. The thing I like about this game is it's less full walking sim. It almost feels like, from the camera perspective and the way that you interact with things, it almost feels like more Resident Evil-y, I would say. You don't...
Okay.
And you can use your medium powers to try and fight... But you can't really fight things, but you feel like you have more interaction with stuff.
Yeah, you're more agency in what you can do, I suppose.
So it's interesting to see like what Blooper Team's chops are for like a Silent Hill game, considering the fact that they're making the new Silent Hill game.
Yeah.
You weren't sure about this game from what you saw. You thought it.
It's not so much the game; it's the criticism
story.
I've heard. It's more the ending of the story.
I think the ending of the game is not that great. I'll be honest.
Okay, but I think there's some. From what people are saying is that I think you should like don't listen to me. Like actually go and look up people.
Look at these ray trace reflections. Beautiful.
They were quite serious criticisms of like portrayal of like mental health and stuff. So it's like not really.
So I gave this game.
But I don't know the rest of the game.
I gave this game 4 stars. So
okay,
I quite liked it. Apparently, which
yeah,
I remember.
The reviews I watched, they said they liked it until like what was implied at the end. So
I think generally the story is really good up until the end. I would say like it's very gripping. There's like a mystery here, and as a medium, you get to explore the world through other people's past memory. It's almost like there's almost like straight up Psychonaut sections. I would say.
I would say like as well as like it kind of like has like an Eldritchian feel to it, like the way that. Kind of portrayed. I would say like in kind of like some of the bleakness of. Well, I don't know the bleakness, but like the sudden change between the views, right?
But yeah, I've never played Silent
this is like
Hill,
very dreary,
but from what people say, it's very much inspired by like the idea of Silent Hill, just like this switching between like detective game into like psychological thriller. In several parts, like it is very.
Never played Silent Hill, so I don't really have any like
yeah, me neither.
Comparisons. So.
I find myself these days saying so much of, I've never played this game, but I played a game that was inspired by it, and this is what I think of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I could say to like the criticism is this game does go very heavily into themes of. Depression and sexual abuse is like core themes throughout this game. So I could definitely see people's potential criticism of that if they are not a fan of how it's portrayed here. I would say like, yeah, the general idea of that is not very good. I don't know how much I can say without spoiling the story. I would say, like, without trying to spoil the story, the general idea of if you're sexually abused, you should just die is kind of an idea that's brought up in this game, which I do not agree with.
And like the game kind of agrees with the villain. It's like, no.
But it's done through metaphor, so it's not like straight up saying that, but it's kind of what it implies. And it's not great, but I think that aside...
when you say the rest of the story is interesting,
like the art and how the game looks and everything, and the general story is pretty good, I would say.
That's what I heard. Yeah, it's like if you could ignore the final bit, you could say if you could ignore the high heavy implications, like it was good until that point.
Yeah, like you can feed the cat, but you can't pet the dog, unfortunately.
I feel like you're kind of playing it in like almost the best way with like overpowered hardware. I feel like people couldn't play this at the time.
I think a 3090 Ti was struggling to run this game.
Yeah.
So I'm playing this with a 4080 with the ray tracing turn up, and even then, this game makes PCs cry. It is a powerhouse for running. You are constantly, but most of the time you're rendering the game twice, which is insane. So even with DLSS on and even sometimes with ray tracing off, it can be like a pain in the ass to run. Like there were certain sections outside that went down to like 20 FPS. Like the game become like unplayable at one point. I found on my card I was generally hitting like around 90 frames per second.
Okay, so that most that's like your average
with like ray tracing on. But there was points where there was a point where I was at 20. Sometimes, I would be at 60, and then sometimes I'd be at 165. Like it would fluctuate massively. It was, I think the biggest problem is it's sort of all over the place. I would say I would generally recommend to most people probably a 60 FPS cap. If you have a powerful enough card, is probably the best way to play it. If not, try and get like a 30 FPS cap.
Right. Okay. What were you rendering that went down to 20 FPS though?
There's a section outside, and I guess something. I think something just goes wrong with the reflections of the glass because you're very much inside for most of the game.
Yeah.
And then you go outside, and then I had the ray trace reflection on the glass, and then suddenly it's just like 20 FPS, and I'm like, shit, I need to get out of here so I can play the game again. And then it goes back, and it never dips to that point again. It's just like
I need someone.
There's like in the Control, Alex Batali has a section called the Corridor of Doom, which just completely destroys the game in terms of performance. But so there is a glass building of doom that completely destroys frames in the medium. But from my newer hardware, it is a lot nicer to see the medium in the state that it was supposed to be made for. And there's genuinely a lot of points in this game I'm like, damn, the art for this looks really cool. And I love the dual perspective thing. And like, again, going into like the fucking Psychonauts sections where they've built like these entire like dream worlds that are like twisted versions, and that those have their own cool self-contained stories that are like really interesting.
Twisted alternative worlds at the same spaces is something that's really cool to me. That's something like DMC does. DMC Devil May Cry does, like the
I think there was only like a couple of times where this game, I was like, I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going. But it was like, I think for most of the game, I was never really like, oh, I'm completely stuck. I think the puzzles in this game were actually really decent. And it always felt like I kind of knew where I was going.
So you weren't having like the point and click, try and click everything problem.
But if you have powerful enough hardware and you're like, oh, I like the sound of like dual perspective, psychic shit. I love the idea of like going inside people's minds. I love the idea of like fucking giant eldritch monsters and shit like that. The medium is genuinely a really cool game, and I would recommend it to most people. But it does have its issues. It's hard to run, and some of the themes it explores it does in a really not great way. That I hope they can clean up before we see Silent Hill remaster.
Yeah, that was a lot of people's responses. Like, yeah, they're probably like technically able to make a Silent Hill, but they need to not have something. Don't want the themes that have that sort of issue again. That would be great.
All right, let's get into it, Tony. The Witcher 3. Okay, I think The Witcher 3 may have one of the best story and characters of worlds I've ever been in a vehicle. It controlled through one of the worst vehicles I've ever controlled in the form of Roach the horse and Geralt the character. I hate moving around in The Witcher 3 so much. It kills me to...
Right.
Like, The Witcher 3
You don't care for the combat either, right?
The Witcher 3 is so... No, the combat's not great either. The Witcher 3's world is so good. I love Geralt. I love the characters. I'm in love with Triss Merigold. I'm so... You know, like, people get parasocial about celebrities. I feel like I formed some sort of virtual relationship with Triss Merigold throughout playing The Witcher 3, where I got into some sort of, like, virtual girlfriend psychosis where I was like, I have to beat the game and I have to go and live in a nice village with Triss Merigold now. Like, that's how much I love the characters in The Witcher 3.
Right.
Like, I was so I was so ingrained in the story. I was like, I have to do this. But yeah, man, I don't know who designed the horse movement in The Witcher 3, but it is fucking awful. I mean, there is so much great content in this game, but the way I played it was main story, like critical path. I tried to do as much like main story stuff because the game's huge. There's so much side content to do, and then I played as much Gwent as humanly possible. I think I played like every single Gwent mission. So critical
So
Gwent
Critical Path
path,
plus Gwen.
critical Gwent path.
Oh, okay, right.
If you don't know,
And you'd recommend that?
Gwent is the card game inside The Witcher 3. So, and I remember the last time I started to I feel like Witcher 3 is like a behemoth of a game where I've heard so many stories of people going, oh, I couldn't get into The Witcher 3 the first time I tried it, but like the second or the third time, that's when I got into the game.
Third time, okay.
Yeah. Because I originally tried to play The Witcher 3 like years ago, but I got distracted, only played Gwen, and then got overwhelmed and didn't go back to it. But like I sat down last year and I was like, you know what? I got this on the wheel. I'm going to sit down and commit to this, and I'm glad I did because genuinely it's a really awesome game. But it's the same problem I have with The Witcher 1. I can't play The Witcher 1. The controls and the combat are awful.
Yeah, I have a weird thing because like I can play. I've not played any Witcher again, but I've played. I think I've put more hours into The Witcher 2 and then 1 and then like a little bit of 3. One is like god awful. Like even considering that the time it came out, there's like no excuse for like how it controls and like the combat is absolutely god awful. But I really liked 2, and I didn't have any problems with 3. I do agree the horse is a little bit stiff, but like I didn't have a problem with like moving or the combat. Like I thought it was fine. There's been a fair few years since I've played it, so I'm curious to know like what I think if I go back to it.
Yeah, I think the big problem with The Witcher 3 as well is it's the best Witcher game in terms of like its combat and its movement and stability and stuff like that. So I think for me going back and playing The Witcher 2 or definitely The Witcher 1 would be impossible now.
I think you can play 2. I think 2 is different. It's not as open as that. You're more going to like different areas, or like smaller open, and then So it's not like a huge open world. There's a kind of similar but limited combat, and like so if you can get stuck having to do a specific thing with the combat system, but I think you can play 2. I think 2's fine to go back to.
But yeah, a lot of people recommend to play like the older games first because it's a lot harder to go back to them. I will say like playing through The Witcher 1 and the 2, your actions in the story can be like imported from those games. You can even simulate a Witcher 2 save if you want to when you start up The Witcher 3. So this is the combat. Really cool. I used Igni a lot. That was like one I favored for my spells. You basically, as a Witcher, you're like a mutant. I'm just assuming everyone knows what a Witcher is. I should probably explain.
Well, you can briefly this, but
I completed the game and I've watched the Netflix series, so I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's happening. Witchers are basically like mutants that were created to fight the monsters of the earth. So they're basically like monster bounty hunters, and they are like part monster themselves. So they have like they can cast like protection spells on themselves, or they can cast like very basic spells, but they're not like mages, where mages are like can do full spells. And basically, a witch's job is mostly to stay neutral. Which is why the whole like The Witcher 2 Assassins of King was like a very controversial thing, because witches are very much supposed to be impartial in like politics. But as you'll tell from playing a Witcher games, Geralt usually gets mixed up in a lot of politics between different factions.
But he's not supposed to.
Well, he can't keep his pants on or his sword in the right place, so he always gets mixed up in these sort of things.
I disagree. He puts it in exactly the right place.
Geralt bathtub.jpg right now. That's what we need to see.
Well, I was saying to you before, like I think last week, is like in Witcher 2, you have to have sex with Triss. Like you cannot progress without it.
But yeah, as somebody who's only ever played The Witcher 3, I will say there is stuff in The Witcher 3 that is great for people who have played The Witcher 2, and the story adds more depth to it, but I never felt like I was missing out completely from not having
Explain
played The
enough.
Witcher 2. Like I got a general gist of what happened in The Witcher 2 just from playing The Witcher 3. Like I could tell the events of what had happened between Nilfgaard and the
Yeah, just
Temerarians and
with less
the different
fidelity, I
factions, right?
suppose. Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's quite an expensive skill tree system, but again, I'm not a big fan of the skill tree. It kind of feels like
No.
they're very like simple stuff you do in
Yeah.
it. It doesn't really
Yeah.
feel like that rewarding. Like I got Igni to a point where instead of shooting out like a burst of fire, you could hold it down like a flamethrower. I thought that looked cool. But in actual fact, it wasn't that strong. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid criticism. It's very yeah.
But a lot of the combat just feels like you are spamming attacks and you're just switching between. Witches have two swords, one's silver for monsters, one's iron for men.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, it's a monster, I'm switching to a silver sword. Oh, it's
Yeah.
a human, I'm switching to an iron sword. That's
It's
the
not a
depth
very
of the
complicated.
combat.
Yeah.
There's a couple of monsters where it's like, oh, this monster's invisible. I need to cast this sign that basically traps them in a circle so I can actually attack them because they're like a wraith monster. Those sort of monsters, I'm like, oh, these are actually interesting mechanics, right? But most of the time, it's quite simple and it's not. It's sort of like a combat puddle rather than a combat ocean sort of depth to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've played the full game now, and I love the story. I think it's fantastic. The whole idea of the wild hunt, and especially Ciri, you have to. The main like story beat of The Witcher 3 is you're trying to find Ciri, who is Geralt's Law of Surprise adopted daughter. Which if you don't, the Law of Surprise is you basically get, if you do a favor for someone, you can call on the Law of Surprise, and it makes them have to give you something. But he didn't know this, so he got given like this princess's daughter as a like to look after. It's like the story of The Witcher. But so basically, she becomes trained as a Witcher herself. I think she's the first female Witcher, Ciri. And the main story of The Witcher 3 is Cyrilda has gone missing, and you're basically looking for her because the Wild Hunt, which are like these ancient undead elf things, are trying to come and find her, and you're trying to protect her from them. So that's the main like story of The Witcher 3, and it's sort of like a detective story. So you go to these different places, and as you figure out what happened in that area, and you piece together the story, that then leads you to playing Ciri missions, where you play through that story as Ciri.
Yeah, it's a cool dynamic.
Yeah,
I'd say like even in other Witcher games, like there are a lot of like detective things you do, or like themes of like detective.
well, the whole idea of a Witcher is you are like a master monster tracker. So you're like finding these small clues. You're basically like Monster Batman in The Witcher.
But you get like people ask for other stuff that's like not entirely related to what you're doing, so you solve other people's problems with the tool set to track monsters, which I just find quite interesting. Well, there's a lot of monsters as well, of course.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah.
I've
had so many conversations with friends who like, I don't think it's just like my opinion that the movement and stuff is bad. Like I've had so many conversations with people who said, yeah, I tried to play The Witcher 3. I really liked the story and stuff, but I quit the game because like the movement and the combat was just so bad in that game. And like
a lot of people that say like as soon as they get on the horse they gave up. Like
yeah,
a lot of people
specifically
that
Roach is like
horse.
a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many great like side quests in this game as well. Like in this footage here in like the starting area, there's a woman who's lost her favorite pot and she wants me to go and get it. There's like monsters that people have started worshipping as gods, and you can like. There's lots of choices, and choices actually matter. They actually change the ending of the story. And it's like, well, you can lie to people, or you can try and get more gold rewards out of them, or you can go and kill people, or you can do different things. Like, there's multiple characters that you can kill them, and they're main characters, and that will have a massive impact on the end of the story. It's not like bullshit choice matters, it's like actual choice matters.
Yeah,
And there is completely different ending for the game, which I found out the hard way. Is like accidentally killed a character, and I was like, well, I guess I gotta live with this now. Because basically, there's a character, and the story is that they're going to do something bad, and I'm like, well, I can't let them do that. So I was like, oh, I'll do the option where I can't let them do that. Maybe I'll let them talk them out of it. And it's like, nope, you just challenge them to the death. You have to kill them now. It's like, oh, shit, I guess I have to kill this person now.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but there's so many like great like dark fantasy, like dark stories about like botchlings. I don't know if you ever heard of botchlings, the monsters. They're like monsters that come from the like magically killed aborted fetuses, like stuff like that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Which is like a core part of the story as well, and it gets into some like really interesting dark themes. Yeah. The Witcher 3 story is really cool.
I would say in terms of the world as well, it's like one of the more accurate depictions. I know it's like a fantasy game, but it's like one of the more accurate depictions of like a late medieval in terms of like colors and themes and like what people would wear and things, whereas like other things or other games, not so much.
But so I should mention this is the non-next gen edition because I played it just before it came. I kept saying to my friend, he was like, so my friend Jesse recommended me this, and he was like, I love The Witcher 3, you should try The Witcher 3. And I was like, I want to play it, but I'm waiting for the next gen update. And I think like a couple of months after I played it, the next gen update came out, and I was like, damn it, I wanted to play the next gen update with like the ray tracing and stuff. But I played the non next gen update, which was probably the better play at the time because I had a less powerful card. Now I'd be able to run, all the features that are very heavy with DLSS 3, which would be like a good way to play.
Yeah. You have to replay and not kill that guy.
One thing I noticed was I never said I killed a man. One thing I noticed was that I kept trying to just go through the main story and go, but then I realized I was becoming like underleveled, so I kind of had to farm out some levels and gear a bit, but there was never too much of that, I found.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess if like you're doing more side quests, that wouldn't normally be a problem.
But I was trying to critical path it, which so to put this in perspective, I did only story missions pretty much, and every Gwent mission, and I played 62.9 hours of The Witcher 3, just to put into perspective how long the main story in Gwent is in that game. So yeah. But yeah, I love Gwent on The Witcher 3. Spies are fucking OP. Every deck I made, I was just like, I'm going to put as many cards in as possible that let me replay my spies. Because if you don't know, spies in Gwent give you card advantage. So you play a minion on your opponent's side of the board, and then it lets you draw 2 cards. And Gwent is a game about having card advantage and passing it on a favorable turn.
Right.
And you can do stuff like put target dummies in your deck, which lets you basically take a minion off the board to put back in your hand. So you're like, your opponent overplays their hand, right? And you have a really powerful minion on the board. You can target dummy that minion, and then you can concede the round, and then you win the next 2 rounds because it's a best of 3, and then you win the game. What I do is I play spies. My opponent target dummies my spy, plays a spy. I then target dummy their spy, which then draws me a spy, and then I play a spy to draw more spies, and then they play a spy to draw more spies, and I'm just like, yeah, Gwent gets a little bit ridiculous with spies. But generally the game's still pretty fun. Yeah.
I guess I never thought about balancing the Gwent as a
But I just say
it's just a game in a game.
I played the main story of The Witcher 3, and my idea was that I would go back at some point when the next gen came out to play the DLC, but I think I'm going to wait a while because the next gen version still has some issues, I would say.
Yeah.
And also, I think I would like to have some time away from the game before I start like the very highly reviewed Blood and Wine DLC.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
But the Blood and Wine
yeah.
DLC
People really like
does look
that.
really good. It looks like a really cool
Yeah.
region. And it looks super colorful as well, which I really
Yeah.
like. This is like completely different dichotomy to like the more darker areas of The Witcher 3. I didn't play on the hardest difficulty at all as well. Like I
Just
played it so
medium.
like yeah, so like meditate. You can meditate at any point outside of combat, and meditating heals you,
Right.
which is very useful. Whereas on the harder
Right.
difficulties, you can't do that. But I wouldn't play on the harder difficulties unless you want to have a really bad time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm probably going to go back at this some point for the next gen version, and then I'll play the DLC and I'll see how I feel about it there. But generally, I would recommend The Witcher 3 as long as you're not super movement and combat averse, because the game does not have great combat averse. But if you can look past that for the story, the world, and the characters, it's definitely a game you can get into. It may take several attempts to get into, but you definitely can get into it at some point. Then we have our final game, Transistor. Another game from the creators of Hades, Supergiant Games. You play as a singer in a weird sci-fi dystopia, I would say.
Yeah.
And the game starts with someone being murdered by a sword, and then the sword sort of like collects the souls or digital brain, I guess, of the person. It's very much like a tech sci-fi thing. And every person you kill, you get to like basically put their being into this sword. And as you go through the story, it turns into like turn-based action combat. So I went in. I think my biggest problem with Transistor is I went into playing this after I played Hades, and it's always like
yeah, that's definitely a mistake.
can be a mistake to play an older game after playing like a much better game, but a lot different game as well. Like for like Daniel Mullen's games, like I played Pony Island and the Hex before I played Inscription. I don't think I would have liked Pony Island and the Hex as much as I did if I'd played Inscription first, because Inscription's such a good game. And it would be hard to go back to the other games knowing, you know, how good the mechanics of the other game was.
Yeah, for sure. I do really like the turn-based nature.
Yeah,
of this game.
initially
It's, like,
it really threw me
satisfying.
the fuck off because I just played Hades, right? So I was
Yeah,
like,
so you're trying to play the Hades,
I'm
right?
trying to play it in real time. I like real time
Yeah,
games. I'm not a big
that's
fan
about-
of turn-based stuff. But then
The real-time combat in this is bad. I would say like you kind of have to.
well, the real time is basically you're running around trying. It's basically like a way to dodge around, waiting for your energy
Yeah.
to recharge.
You're kind of being punished for not being efficient with your.
I love that every like
your turn-based
Supergiant
attacks.
games has just an option to just look at the scenery for no reason. In every game they
Yeah.
do, there's like, oh, do you want to look at this
appreciate
cool
the artwork.
artwork we've made?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
get anything
yeah.
from it, but here you go.
Well, I didn't get anything gameplay from it, but yeah, it's really I appreciate it.
But yeah, at first the combat I was not into it, but the further I got into the game, I started to learn it and I started to really get into it. I think it's really cool the way they designed it, where you basically install abilities like a processor or something. Like you're like a computer, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you only have a certain amount of battery to give to each ability, and then you can spend to upgrade your battery, or you can spend to like enhance your abilities. So it's like, do I want more capacity in order to be able to equip more passives and more abilities, or do I want to spend the ability to add more slots to enhance my current abilities? And then when
it's a cool trade-off.
you fight in combat and you lose health, you don't like die, you lose like some of your battery capacity. So for like a certain amount of fights, you have to fight without an ability, which I'm like, that's such a cool and interesting way to do it, which I think is really cool. I love just all the side quest additional dialogue that you can go and do for no reason other than it's cool and is cool stuff to read. I found myself doing that all the time. This is sort of stuff you can do in Hades as well. You can just go and do like side story stuff for no reason, or just look at beautiful art for no gameplay reasons, and it's always great to do.
They knock out like every time that they put the worlds they create are just really cool.
Like I found with Supergiant games,
nice.
like I played Bastion and I really didn't like the combat in that game.
Yeah.
I was like, it's got a cool narrator in a world and stuff, but ultimately I ended up not liking the game. Transistor, I think the combat was definitely a lot better for Bastion than me, but then it's like I absolutely adore the world and everything about the story. And then Hades is like, okay, finally the world and the story and the combat is just everything's phenomenal. It's so well put together. But yeah, I think Transistor is definitely worth playing still because again, it's quite short. It's only about, I think it took me about 5 hours, about 4 to 5 hours long. Like it's not that long of a game.
Yeah, as a turn-based, we'll play a lot of turn-based games. Like I really appreciate it. Like I really like. I've not played Hades, so I don't have a comparison. But yeah, I really like the way it does it in this game. It's very interesting to me anyway. Like it just, yeah, it's very satisfying to me. It's nice to see that you execute it after.
Yeah, but it gets into this like plot of like cyber terrorism, I would say, is like a and there's like you take these turn-based mechanics and then you have like full up boss fights and they can almost be turned on their head, and I love the customization and how you want to play. Like I had a build where I had like a dog build where I had like a summon, so I summon these dogs, and then as well as controlling my character in the slow time, I could also move around these dogs individually. So you get one dog, but then I had a mod on the dog that gave me several dogs, which dealt less damage, but I could use them to basically clear out more trash while I sent my main character to go and attack the big guys, which I was like, that was a good way to do it.
Yeah, I don't think I ever used the dog, so I didn't realize it could be that powerful.
Oh, you've played this game, have you?
I don't think I completed it. I think I might. I don't know why I started. I think it was just like. But yeah, I played the start of it for sure, and it's like just having a lot of fun.
Yeah. I think if you hadn't played Hades, I would say play this and then play Hades.
Yeah. My plan was to play this before Hades for sure.
Because I want people to play Hades, but it's almost ruined because of how it's like the problem with playing earlier games. Again, it's so much harder to play them once you've played later games, and I think I've experienced that several times through like stuff like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons I was talking about recently. Like I'd already played It Takes Two by that point, and I was like, man, this is a deeply flawed game with a really interesting story. But I've already seen like how good A Way Out and even better It Takes Two could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the customization. I love the world. I fell in love with the combat towards the end. I did say in my like Bastion review at the time I was like, I think the combat gets good at the end, but by that point the game's over, which is like almost the biggest shame about Bastion for me personally.
Bastion's like a very slow progression, like getting like the choices of weapons and things right.
Yeah. I think I would recommend Transistor to most people, but it's not like a 5 out of 5 game. It's sort of like somewhere more like probably more like a 4-star or like a 3.5-star sort of like game, right? Where it's like it's a good experience that most people should try, but it's not like something
the combat's not for everyone.
It's not like blowing me away, but it's also not like a super long game that's going to waste your time if you're not into it. which is like probably the biggest strength. There's so many good elements to Transistor that it transcends that middle ground games I was talking about and becomes a good game without being like a perfect game, like a Hades, for example.
I genuinely thought a lot of the mechanics, like from like some of the enemy, what enemies do, and like how you interact with them, and again, like what you point out with like the progression.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the upgrade module progression and like trade-off thing. That I honestly think a lot of turn-based games could learn from that, or like have like similar things or similar ideas that they then manipulate to be work in their game. I think it's like there's a lot of cool things that aren't executed like this in any other turn-based games. So.
Yeah, you sort of you're used to being in like real time, but it's like, well, I'm gonna basically plan out all of my moves and then I'm going to execute them in the time. But the cool thing is when you freeze time, everything freezes, right? But when you start moving, the enemies can start moving. Yeah. So your plans don't always come to fruition, and you kind of have to try and play around that. It's like, well, I'm going to try and hit this guy 3 times, but he might moved by then. So I kind of have to like try and plan, well, maybe I am 2 times, and then I'll use the rest of my energy to run away from this guy so he doesn't immediately kill me after I've finished hitting him. And you sort of have to mix match between your perfect actions and your best that you can do realistically actions is like one of Transistor's big strengths, which forcing you to use that turn-based combat is like really pushes you into this great combat idea, which I think ultimately wouldn't have been experienced through real-time combat.
Yeah, my only question is that maybe like the combat, there shouldn't be combat in the real-time sections. Be like other ways to make it more interesting to wait for your turn-based.
The real time, the real time is basically just waiting for that VATS bar to start.
So then, I think they need something to make it more interesting to do that.
Or like when you kill these robots, they drop cells, and you want to immediately pick up these cells because that way you stop them from respawning. Essentially, that's how they kind of tie into the real time part.
Yeah, I still think you do a lot of waiting, but yeah, absolutely. Try and force you to be a bit more aggressive.
I think I would have liked this game less if it was a full turn-based game as well. I will say. The blend is like it's like a very good set. Maybe I would have liked this game less if it was a full real-time game. Who's to say? I think that
to me, I think it needs to be like have the hybrid. Like I really like the way that they executed the actual turn-based nature of it.
Yeah,
so,
Transistor.
It's great.
Game I played on my wheel and I very much enjoyed, and I would recommend. So that's the wheel, Tony. And the wheel, of course. The Transistor recommended by our good friend Scorn Retorts.
Yes.
I found it funny how
he has also played it.
I got recommended 2 Supergiant games and I got recommended 2 Rockstar games. So
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Two different games from the same developers. So they must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did like a wrap up of the wheel in like the bad version, but whether I do the wheel again, not for a very long time. That was my general consensus. I think
it took a while for you to finish the wheel, right? Because of how long some of the games were.
Yeah. I think I had some great experiences through playing games like Tales of the Neon Sea, a game I wouldn't have played myself.
But it sounds like you didn't need a wheel. You just needed like every now and again someone to recommend you a game that's like not what you.
Sometimes it's easier to trick people into talking to you and recommending you games than it is to do it naturally. Sometimes I have to trick Tony into having conversations with me about the podcast to just talk about random shit. And here we are.
Right, you didn't do that for me. You just said pick a game. So
yeah.
I think it's like before like a Tangerine recording you got to do it, I think, if I remember correctly.
I tricked you into doing it.
Yeah.
You get like these shield enemy drone things, which are like, it's a priority to kill that now because it's shielding the enemies, so I can't attack these enemies until I get them. Or these weeds will hit you if you go past them, so you need to basically chip them down with like lots of little damage, so you can like move freely around while you recharge your main abilities. Anyway, I really liked a lot of the games I played. I didn't like a lot of the games I played. It turns out the best person to recommend me games is usually myself, but maybe in the
Yeah.
future I'll do more recommended stuff that I wouldn't normally play or more random stuff. But again, with the
But
random
when you feel like
stuff,
it.
the random stuff, the one you randomly picked was really good, but the American Circus random one was really bad. And my track record
Yeah.
for playing random epic games
But that
that
was
look like they're good is really bad as well.
yeah, absolutely. But did you completely randomly choose the circus one?
Yes, that was completely
Okay.
random.
I feel like true randomness is not the answer. I've been burnt by true randomness before. Um, yeah, I've also been burnt by this sounds interesting but isn't interesting in the end. But I still feel there's a better way of doing it.
Yeah. From now on, I'm going to be picking games for myself for the foreseeable future, but who knows? Maybe I will need the randomness again at some point. And that's the end
You
of
need the chaos. You need
Tangerine.
to face chaos.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Bye.